Welcome to the Habitat for Humanity Volunteer Training Course. This course will walk you through what to expect from your volunteer experience working on a Habitat for Humanity house. We'll cover activities you may perform, job site hazards you may encounter, and what is expected of you while volunteering with Habitat for Humanity. You will be greeted by a site supervisor who will ask you to check in and sign a volunteer liability waiver if you haven't done so already. Please be sure to read over the waiver before signing it. The site supervisor will review the tasks for the day, assign duties to each individual, conduct a safety briefing, and have a prayer. Some of the most common tasks volunteers perform while volunteering at a Habitat for Humanity job site include framing walls, installing insulation, hanging drywall, hanging siding, painting, and landscaping and cleanup. The frame is the skeleton of the house. If you are involved in the framing phase, you will be hammering studs together to create walls, raising those walls, and fastening them in place. Because framing is literally the framework of a house, it is one of the most important tasks for volunteers to do correctly on the first try. While the volunteer duties in framing are relatively straightforward, there will be experienced leaders on site to walk you through the process step by step. Tools you will use include hammers, nails, saws, levels, and ladders. It is important to be aware of what you are doing so that you don't accidentally hammer a finger. The walls will be heavy. When raising a wall, use your legs, bending your knees, and not your back. Be aware of any variation in the floor that can cause you to trip while raising a wall. Insulation is installed in the attic and walls of the house to keep warm air in during colder outside temperatures and cold air in during warmer temperatures. The type of insulation used will be different depending on where it is installed, but the process of installation is the same. Insulation is fitted between the wall studs and secured. If you've ever worked with insulation before, you know it can be very irritating and you'll need to protect yourself. You'll need to wear gloves, a long-sleeve shirt, long pants, a disposable mask rated for fiberglass, and safety goggles. For installing insulation in an attic, there needs to be adequate support to walk on. Do not rely on the rafters to provide support. They are not big or strong enough to brace your fall should you lose your balance. Place a board across the rafters should you need to. Drywall, sometimes called wallboard, is used to cover studs and the electrical wiring and piping that reside inside walls. Drywall is sometimes referred to as the skin of the home. Drywall sheets are typically hung from the ceiling down to the floor. Once the drywall sheets are secured using drywall screws, joint compound is used to cover the seams. Some tools you might use during the process are power drills, drywall screws, and utility knives. When lifting the sheets of drywall, be sure to bend at the knees and lift with your legs. At certain points, you will be required to cut sheets down to fit specific areas. You'll first measure and mark the drywall, and then use a sharp utility knife to score along the marks. Be sure to cut through the paper into the inner chalky core. The drywall will then break easily at the point where it is scored. When making cuts, be sure your fingers are clear from your cutting area. Painting is one task that many first-time volunteers are familiar with, and a common task that Habitat volunteers perform. While painting can be fun and relatively easy, painting is the most visible aspect of the volunteer's work and must be done with care. The tools involved will be paint, paintbrushes, rollers, pans, drop cloths, and ladders. If you are working from a ladder, the ladder must be placed on level ground. Don't reach too far out from the ladder. This could cause you to lose your balance and fall. Be careful when carrying tools up and down the ladder. If possible, have another person lift them up to you once you are in position on the ladder. Use a bucket on a pulley or wear a tool belt. We'll cover more ladder safety tips later on in the course. Many Habitat houses have a vinyl siding exterior. Installing exterior siding requires nailing individual pieces of siding to the house. Think of it as a large puzzle. You'll be using hammers, knives, nails, saws, and ladders to install siding. Watch out for edges of the siding. Handling the siding can easily cut hands or fingers, so gloves are recommended. While hammering the siding in place, be conscious of where you are hammering. Smashed fingers are a common injury for novices. Ladders are usually necessary to hang the top pieces of siding. Be sure the ladder is placed on level ground. A tip for stability is to rest the top of your belt buckle just below a ladder rung. When working from ladders, scaffolds, or roofs, make sure you have enough working room, at least 10 feet, so that you will not come in contact with overhead electric lines. Electrical burns are severe and can lead to lifelong impairments. If you notice a cord has worn insulation or damaged wires, give it to a site supervisor to be fixed or replaced. Every job site will be equipped with a fire extinguisher. Your site supervisor should point out its location. If you encounter a fire, determine whether or not it can be put out with a fire extinguisher. If it is small enough to eliminate, use the pass system. Pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the flames, squeeze the trigger, sweep the extinguisher from side to side, covering the area of the fire with the extinguishing agent. If the fire is too large, the fire department should be called. Laying sod and planting trees and shrubbery are typically the finishing touches on a habitat house. Sod or ground cover is laid in the yard and holes are dug to plant shrubs and trees. A common injury from landscaping is a strained lower back due to bending and twisting. Laying sod requires lifting and bending for long periods of time, so be sure to take breaks and don't overexert yourself. Scrapes and cuts are also often caused by random construction debris covering the yard, including stray nails and rocks. Wearing gloves and appropriate footwear is important to help prevent these injuries. Trips and falls also occur frequently. Ground is often not level, or there are holes or stumps that can be easily stepped in or tripped over. You will see a variety of tools during your volunteer day with Habitat, some of which you will use, some of which you will not. If you are asked to use a tool, be absolutely sure you know how to use it. This is not the time or place for overconfidence. If you are unsure how to use a tool or simply need a refresher, ask your supervisor for instruction. Supervisors are happy to help. Power tools should never be carried by the cord, and cords should be kept wrapped up when the tool is not in use or is being moved. Never toss a tool to another worker, especially when other workers are in the vicinity. There have been many instances of people being hurt by flying tools. Ladders are used throughout the course of the building process and should be inspected for damage before each use. If a ladder is suspected of being defective, it should be marked as such and put out of commission. Let the supervisor know. Ladder treads should be clean and free of debris that may cause a slip and fall. Always face the ladder when climbing and keep a 3-point contact at all times. This means that either 2 feet and 1 hand or 2 hands and 1 foot are on the ladder at all times. Never stand above the 3rd rung from the top of the ladder. If the ladder is being used as an access to the roof or an upper level, the ladder must extend 3 feet past the access point, making entering and exiting easier. Ladders should be stable, left to right and top to bottom. Do not place a ladder on ground that is too soft, rocky, uneven, or otherwise unsafe. Ladder stabilizers, sometimes called a standoff, can help prevent ladder sway. Stabilizers also help extend a ladder's capabilities and allow you to work more safely. Step ladders are not meant to be used as extension ladders. They should be fully opened and braced before standing on them. Ladders must be positioned at the correct angle to safely support your weight. Follow the 4-to-1 rule when setting up a ladder. The distance from the base of the ladder and the base of the wall should be about 1/4 the distance from the bottom of the ladder to where the ladder touches the wall. For example, if the top of the ladder is 12 feet up the wall, the bottom of the ladder should be 3 feet out from the wall. Follow the manufacturer's label on the ladder for correct positioning. Because hand injuries are a major hazard when using saws, only experienced workers should be allowed to use power saws of any type. If you do have experience using saws, you may be asked to use one as a volunteer. Be sure to cut away from yourself and avoid using a body part such as your hand as a guide for your cut. When using a reciprocating saw, be sure to keep both hands on the saw and follow all of the manufacturer's instructions. When using a circular or table saw, Be sure the guards are in place, and never remove the guards from a saw. Guards are in place to protect you from the operating point, where the material meets the saw. PPE stands for Personal Protective Equipment. You may be asked, depending on the task you are performing, to use certain PPE. Hard hats protect your head from falling objects, and they will help protect your head if you happen to fall. Habitat requires that hard hats be worn when working from heights or when others are performing work above you. Gloves will help protect your hands from nicks, cuts, abrasions, skin absorption of harmful substances, and chemical and thermal burns. They will also help to deflect some of the force if your hand is struck by an object. Eye protection helps reduce the number and severity of eye injuries in 90% of accidents. Flying objects, such as fragments, chips, sand, sawdust, and dirt particles are the most common eye hazards we encounter on the construction site. Proper eye protection must comply with American National Standards Institute, or ANSI Standard Z87.1, which means these glasses have met certain standards for impacts, shattering, and chemicals. Proper glasses will be marked with Z87 to show they meet the ANSI standard. Normal sunglasses or prescription sunglasses usually do not meet the standard. They can easily shatter and typically do not have any side protection. Make sure your safety glasses fit well, or you will be less likely to wear them. Ear protection is equally important and should be worn at any time the noise level is loud enough to damage your ear. Continued exposure to loud noises can have lasting effects on your hearing. If you are performing a task that you are not comfortable doing, stop. It is always better to be safe now than sorry later. Not only could the work be done incorrectly, but your safety is of utmost importance. Let a site supervisor know that you'd like more training to perform the task. If you're still not comfortable with the task, the supervisor will be happy to direct you to a task that you are comfortable with. Habitat for Humanity's primary concern is the safety of its volunteers. No one should perform a task they are not comfortable doing. Common sense isn't necessarily always common. Don't put yourself in a dangerous situation, being in a rush to complete a task. There is plenty of time and plenty of volunteers to get the job done safely and effectively. Don't let another volunteer encourage you or sway your decision to perform a task safely. If you see something being done in a less than safe manner, tell a supervisor right away. You are ultimately responsible for your own safety while volunteering with Habitat for Humanity. The job site can be a dangerous place, but those dangers can be reduced by taking the time to familiarize yourself with your surroundings. Be on the lookout for protruding nails and holes or uneven spots in the floor. Any one of these conditions can cause serious injury. If noticed, notify a site supervisor so the hazard can be corrected. Also be aware of anyone carrying large loads. They may have a hard time seeing you and their surroundings. Stand clear until they pass. Unguarded floor openings present a major hazard for workers. Falls through the openings have led to very serious injuries and deaths on Habitat job sites. Openings should be guarded properly as construction progresses. Please be cautious when working around floor openings. If you see an unguarded opening, let the site supervisor know immediately and warn others of the hazard as well. The top photo illustrates improper use of ladders. Ladders should be used according to manufacturer's instructions and should never be stacked or connected. This would create a very serious hazard. If you are not comfortable with heights, do not go on the roof. If you are comfortable working from heights, make sure to keep your weight towards the peak. Always be sure to never place tools on the roof and be aware of where the roof edge is at all times. House construction is often conducted during warmer weather, from spring through late fall. Summer months in most of the country are very warm, and working outside can be very exhausting. It is important to bring plenty of water to prevent dehydration. It is absolutely essential to stay hydrated. This also applies in colder weather. Even though you may not feel thirsty, your body needs fluid to stay healthy no matter what the weather. Habitat for Humanity typically does not provide lunch for their volunteers, so be sure to bring a lunch or money to purchase lunch nearby. If If you are with a group of volunteers, water and lunches may be coordinated ahead of time. And be sure to bring a positive attitude and enthusiasm towards the day's work. The work you are doing supports a very important cause and should be embarked on as a wonderful opportunity to do something for someone in need. Proper attire is essential to a successful building experience. Do not wear baggy clothing that can get caught easily on protruding materials or caught in a machine guard. Work boots are another essential part of working on a construction site. If you do not have work boots, then wear thick-soled shoes to help prevent puncture wounds from loose nails and debris that could pierce through a shoe. Weather permitting, jeans are recommended since they help protect your legs from cuts, abrasions, and spills. Shorts are typically allowed during hot summer months. Bring your own work gloves and safety glasses if you have them. It is recommended that you do not park on the construction site. This is for your benefit. Oftentimes, workers' vehicles that are parked on a job site are damaged or the tires are punctured from stray nails. If you have tools or materials to drop off at the start of the day, do so and then move your vehicle off the construction site. Some Habitat affiliates will designate a parking area for their workers. Be sure to check with your affiliate to see if they've chosen a parking place. We expect that every volunteer will enjoy working on a Habitat for Humanity house and the opportunity to give to their community. You may make new friends, and more than likely you will learn some new skills that can benefit you for a lifetime.